Hello and welcome to the Resin 3D printing training. My name is Hudson Samuels, and at the time of this recording I am the president of UTDesign Makerspace, and today I'm going to give you a brief summary of how you go about Resin 3D printing. So Resin 3D printing is a very dangerous task. We do ask that everybody who Resin 3D prints complete this training, as well as wear a mask, gloves, and any other relevant protection while using the resin printers, goggles, and make sure to have a partner with you in the lab so that way if any accident does occur that they'll be able to help you and they can make sure to double check all your work. We really want to make sure with the launch of the resin printing that everybody is able to use our tools safely. So with that, I ask that if you have not already, please complete the 3D printing training before completing this one. It'll give you a basic idea on how the easier slicing works for FDM printers, as well as how to use our easier 3D printing if you just need something basic. But if you need something smaller and more intricate, like a figurine or some sort of cosplay piece that needs to be very detailed, then this may be for you. But make sure that you've gone over that more basic training first. With that out of the way, this video is going to cover the actual physical parts of the resin printing process. This will not cover how to slice using lychee or Chidu box. We kind of expect everybody to learn that on their own. Unlike the other 3D printing, there isn't too much complex setup. All you really need to do is we recommend lychee. You just download it, choose the printer. We have a photon being used in this video, and your resin. And once you have that all set up, you're good to go. And then make sure you bring your own resin. We only allow the inland brand. More information on our rules. And, just pick that filament and use those settings and you should be good to go. Make sure you've got your print rotated and you automatically set up supports and all that. You'll kind of see what that should look like later in this video and you're good. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump into the actual video. So this is going to be a live commentary. I'm going to pause at certain parts, but just to give you kind of an idea, this is going to be a one-take sort of discussion. So yeah, let's jump right into it. So I'm going to hit play now. And you'll notice, first thing, I am wearing gloves. That's a very, very important part whenever you're dealing with resin here. You'll also notice that we have the door open and a lot of ventilation going on here. And we didn't really have any masks available, so I am unfortunately not wearing one here. But please make sure to whenever you're using our technology here. So the first thing I'm doing here is I'm taking our standard black resin, I believe, is the type I'm using this time, and pouring it directly into the vat. So when you slice your model, you'll generally be given an amount in volume for how much resin your print is actually going to take. So make sure you fill up the vat to that amount and that you're using the correct vat. So this one is marked as standard, so we're using our standard resin here. Next, you'll notice I'm checking that everything is secured and clean on our build plate. So the build plate is that part right there that moves up and down. I'm making sure there's no extra resin left on it and it's tightly secured using that knob on the top. I've realized it's good, so you're going to see I'm shoving that cover on there, the UV cover. And you need to make sure that it's flat on there, so if you try to jiggle it a little bit, it's not shuffling around because there is a back sensor on there that'll make sure it's shut. Next, you go ahead and hit print and you select your model. Usually the newest ones will be towards the bottom, and you just get it on there using the USB stick provided on the right. And once you hit start, you'll notice that build plate begins to lower, and it's going to start with that first layer. So as you can find elsewhere on the internet, these first layers don't take as much time, or I'm sorry, they do take more time, and it may take a little bit longer than the later layers. But once you do get into those later layers, you'll notice it just follows a very, very basic process. All it's really doing is it's dipping that build plate to the very bottom, and you can see the image of what's being shown on the UV screen to burn in. Once it's done, it's going to slowly lift up a little bit, and it's going to quickly lift up. You may hear a popping sound when this happens, and then it's going to go right back to where it was, but just a little bit higher so it can burn in that next layer. Now, once you're done, you'll go ahead and have to confirm that you're done with the print and turn off the printer. And you'll want to go ahead and slowly raise that lid to let all the fumes out. Make sure you don't directly breathe near that printer, and make sure you have that door open. That way you are letting all of those toxic fumes out safely. Next thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and unscrew that build plate. So just twist that right off, and you just pull it towards you to remove it. But you'll see here I'm first preparing our alcohol bath. So this is an alcohol container and a seismic plate or orbital shaker. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take off the build plate, and we're going to go ahead and swish it around a little bit in the alcohol. This is something I like to do because it kind of helps when you're cleaning that build plate off directly. You'll notice I'm taking a scraper here and I'm scraping off our model. So in this case, I've printed two very cursed looking Kirby's, and I'm going to hope that I didn't actually get a close-up of them, because that will probably scar everyone for life. Now, since we've got our models off and in the alcohol, the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is make sure we clean off all of that alcohol from the build plate. So you'll notice I'm just swirling it around again, getting all that alcohol nice and on there. And I'm going to take a paper towel and just scrub it right off. So what this does is it makes sure that the next person that uses the build plate doesn't have any extra alcohol on there, and there's not any issues with it scraping against the bottom in the vat, causing further issues. And you know, it's just a part of upkeep, just like rubbing alcohol on the FDM printer build plates. So make sure you do this. It's extremely helpful for the next person, and we really do not want to leave any caked up resin on there, as it will cause issues. And you can tell it's done now. There's a few scuff marks on there, but that's a-okay. As long as it's not hardened resin, we're good. So I'm going to go ahead and put that back in, screw it on so it's tight, and we're good. So you'll notice I'm going to go ahead and put that lid right back on, and we're going to turn on the shaker. And you'll notice I'm just going to put it on for about 3 minutes. And the speed doesn't matter too much, but try to keep it at a relatively low setting. Once it's done, you can go ahead and take off that lid. Unfortunately, our containers have been used quite a bit, so you may have to apply a bit of pressure with your thumb on one of those parts jetting out and lift. And unfortunately, it is pretty sticky, but it's okay. As long as you're wearing gloves, shouldn't pose an issue. Now, you'll notice that those supports are going to come right off. So you'll notice on this first one, I'm kind of meticulously going about it one support at a time, but eventually I'm able to just rip the whole thing right off. And I've got a trash can down there that I'm disposing all the supports into. Make sure you're properly prepared. And yeah, looks like all the support's been removed. So next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and throw that in the alcohol a little bit, make sure those exposed parts get a little bit of alcohol on them as well. And now that I've got it a bit dried off, I'm going to rub it in on a paper towel, just like we did with the build plate, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in the UV machine. You'll notice this is actually the second Kirby. I went ahead and did the supports for it off camera. And now we're going to turn on the LC3D print box. This is a UV machine that'll make sure to solidify any liquid resin still on the outside so it's safe to touch. And I usually do mine for about 4 minutes, but your mileage may vary. Just try to keep it around that mark. And once it's done, it's going to make a loud beeping noise. I think I will probably leave a little bit of that sound in so you can hear it. And here we go. There's our print. It'll look a little bit more matte than it did before, so a little less glossy. And it'll be safe to touch now, so you don't have to wear gloves anymore when touching these after you've safely removed them from the UV box. Make sure you do have gloves on when you remove them though, that way if there's any resin on the mirrors or anything, you're not getting that on you. And you'll also notice that I left the alcohol container open. Very, very, very important that you do not do this. You'll notice I'm taking my gloves off here because I kind of forgot, but I just realized, so I'm going to go ahead and put that back on. This is another one of those cases of do as I say, not as I do. Make sure you're really careful with everything you're touching. I did make sure to wash my hands thoroughly after this. But yeah, that's about it. As long as you've got everything cleaned up, you should have a completed Resin 3D print. And hopefully you enjoyed this training video and now have a better understanding of how everything works. As stated before, this is a very, very, very dangerous tech because resin is quite poisonous to people. So make sure if you have any questions, please ask in our Discord. We've always got people there to help. And yeah, hopefully you do well on your exam. You've taken the 3D printing one by this point, I assume, so you have an idea of what they're like. Open notes, make sure you refer to our wiki page and everything, and good luck.